Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today, I had the pleasure to chat with American country singer-songwriter, producer, and American Idol Season 14 contestant Laurel Taylor. This news episode, Laurel shares what her experience on American Idol was like, admiration for Carrie Underwood, Vince Gill, behind the creation of singles Old House Mama Parade, a thought she can never seem to escape, what she thinks about the ever-growing music industry, and more. Now, with that being said, hope you enjoy my conversation with Laurel. Laurel, hello. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing really well. I mean, let's talk about right off the bat. I mean, CMA Fest just wrapped up. Um, what was that experience like for you?
Well, being in Nashville, it's super common to, go downtown and see all the people and all the stars and the artists and just all the opportunities and the events that you get to do. And you just never know who's going to see you. No matter what stage you play on, wherever you are, you can play on the side of the street and somebody's going to notice you, So it's just super cool to connect with everybody in the community.
I guess the question that I would probably pose to you is like if there was one artist that sort of stood out to you during the whole CMA Fest, who would that be?
I would either say Jody Messina or there's a Christian artist named Ann Wilson, and I love that she flips on both sides, and she got to play some of her original stuff. So it's just super cool to see the artist play in different genres and appeal to different crowds. So
Yeah, and I guess there's so many different people that you kind of were I guess like when it comes to CMA Fest or country music in general, I guess there's a lot of people who now look at people like um Dalton Dover, who look at people like Jelly Roll.
yeah,
And now there's this, but there's this whole slew of other artists that have done it before and have done it for a long time. Cody Johnson for one.
yeah,
But one performance that stood out to me was Tim McGraw.
yeah,
When he brought up the children. I love
yeah,
when he
yeah,
did
yeah.
that. That
Oh
was
yeah,
like that
yeah,
that was one of the pinnacle moments of the CMA Fest to me. Even though people can say, Carrie Underwood was good or Lainey Wilson,
yeah,
but Tim McGraw doing that is that was
yeah.
a big statement, and I like when he does that. Um, I mean, there's got to be artists also. I mean, I guess when we're talking about artists now, Vince Gill has for sure come up with your name. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, was there songs that sort of stood out to you by Vince that you kind of hold close to your heart?
Honestly, it's every instrument he can play. That really stuck out to me. And when I first moved to Nashville, I went to the Time Jumpers, is his band that he plays on like Monday nights at 30 and Lindsley. And I got the opportunity to meet him backstage and hang out with him. And it was just super cool to know that. I mean, he's just an ordinary guy, and he's just super talented, super gifted. And there's always a story to songs. And so I respect the artists that take the time, to share the story or whatever that looks like, writing it. And it just goes a long way, it appeals and it's just different for different people to take it how they want to hear it, the perspective of the song. So
Well, obviously, me being a Vince Gill fan myself, I mean, there's been a lot of songs that have really, I guess, hit home for me. And when I'm listening to Vince's music, it's not only timeless, but it's honest, and
yeah, yeah,
that's how
yeah,
he is. Like he's an honest man.
he is.
Well, people can ask him. I remember him being asked a question at the CM. What is it? I think CMT Giants.
Okay.
And it was, I think, I forget who it was. It was on the Bobby Bones show,
Uh-huh.
and they were interviewing him backstage or on the carpet, and they were asking him, um, something about, being recognized that night and what he felt in that
Yeah.
moment. And he says, you know, people can say that I like the spotlight pretty
Hmm.
much. And he's like, I don't have a care for it. Like I
Yeah.
appreciate being under the spotlight, but I don't have anything that I'm like really longing to be in the spotlight for.
Yeah.
And that's the type of guy Vince was. And I mean, from songs from Whenever You Come Around to When I Call Your Name to One More Last
Yep.
Chance. I mean,
Yeah.
and now I want to get into talking about songs that you have written or co-written. I didn't know this, but you co-wrote Blake Shelton's Old Red. Um,
No. My mentor is Don Goodman. He
Ah,
Old Red. Yeah. It's super cool. He's the
yeah.
one that taught me how to write. He's the one that taught me how to write story songs, and he has been a grandfather ever since day one in Nashville. So
Yeah. And what do you think about Blake Shelton's now departure from The Voice? Have you had the chance to really like think about what his legacy has meant on that show?
oh yeah, I have a lot of friends that went on The Voice and chose Blake for that, that reason. He's just a great respected coach. But hey, Reba's taking over, so let's go. She's respected too.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm curious to know who those friends of yours are that have been on The Voice or been on shows like that. Who are we talking about here?
Yeah, Allison Bray was one of them. That she's like we call her like a Anna Nicole. She looks very similar to Anna Nicole, Allison Bray, and Courtney Ramirez. She did it, and she chose Miley Cyrus. So I think it was Miley, and then it was Blake. So it's just cool how you know it's just all about style. I'd honestly go if I did The Voice, I would have went with Adam Levine for sure. His style's more the pop style for me and where I'm leaning towards. So,
Absolutely. And I want to talk about American Idol just for a brief moment because you've had experience on there, but I guess it wasn't I guess it wasn't long to be quite honest. Um you were, I guess, eliminated in Hollywood rounds.
yes, the last
Um
day of Hollywood. Um,
and tell me about the experience. What was it like and sort of what emotions were you going through during the whole journey as a whole?
well, I'll tell you, it was nerve-wracking. I'm not a nervous person when it comes to being on stage and things that just doesn't happen with me. But this was a little different because you basically have like one shot to show up. And if you don't, you don't. And they don't look at that as, oh, come back later. I mean, the last day was very hectic because it was the group round. It was like you had lightning round, you had all these different, group rounds, and then there was this one that you could pick your own group, and you either chose to stay up all night and learn the song together or go to sleep. And we were called Team No Sleep, so we didn't sleep. And it was miserable because you need sleep for your voice. And so it's a matter of and that was a few, years ago. So it's like I would know how to handle it a little better and be a lot more healthier than I was then. And I didn't take it as seriously as I could have. And you need to be like focused when you're there. You don't need to worry about the people around you or the competition. You're just there for you, and just sing your best, do your best, and that's all you can do. And I think that's what messed me up, screwed me up, is not getting enough sleep and just being friends with everybody, truly, you know.
And if you were to get the chance to redo it all over again, would you try out again for American Idol and give it another crack?
No, I would not. I am done with competitions. I think that is for people that either have a longing to be in the spotlight or they just want to be noticed. And it's something you have to try. But where I'm at as an artist, established artist, I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going, and I don't need that truly.
Yeah, I want to have this important conversation about just that what you're talking about, and I feel this is such an important question to ask, and I've always wondered what artists kind of think about on a daily basis when it comes to those things specifically. I mean, do you think that there is like I don't know how to say this, but it's like, do you think that there's a frequency now that you're seeing artists just wanting the spotlight for the sake of having the spotlight rather than making their music effective and meaningful? Do you think that there's a frequency that we're seeing people wanting to do that more often than actually writing true music?
Yeah, I believe that an everyday thing. And I think that's something that each artist has to fight every single day. Do you want to be relevant? Do you want to be popular? Do you want to be untruthful? There's all kinds of options. And for me, I'd rather write a really good story and a really catchy song than it have me sell out and be like, that's nothing like I would write. That's nothing like I would sound like, but everybody wants it. That's just, I refuse to do that, and I'm very outside of the box. And I feel like every day there are artists that just say, hey, this is working. Let's just keep doing it. And that's just not the case for me. It's not, where's your purpose at? Where's the importance in that? So,
Yeah, and I want to read a quote that you said about you defining your music, and I found it interesting. You said, I always want to write an encouraging message that the listener can relate to. I want to tell stories of hope and restoration and lyrics that bring life to any situation you may be going through. I want to give the listener encouragement to keep moving forward and never giving up. Um, do you feel that's still a current thing for you now, moving forward as an artist, to keep that same mentality going, while it's still also holding that, I guess, purpose that you've been wanting to be an artist for a long time, or wanted to be a country artist for a long time? Besides being in Nashville, that's we can talk about that in another day, but that's a whole other subject. But I guess chasing the dream alone is another one too.
yeah.
Um, is it currently the same thing for you moving forward as an artist? Like,
Yes. I would rather, bring hope and life to somebody than waste their time, playing these songs and showing off. I don't feel like chasing the dream is the way I would put it anymore. It's mainly just walking in it every day, knowing that this is what I'm created to do, music. And I have a new song coming out in July called Clarity, and it's a country pop crossover with a rapper, Tadashi. And that it just brings it's not overtly as you would say Christian, but it is a positive message, and it's super cool.
yeah, and I guess now that like there is a lot of, I guess I was talking to another artist on the podcast, and we were having this conversation about what she thinks about the whole crossover in genres nowadays. And, we were referencing people like Taylor Swift, and we were referencing people like Kelsey Ballerini. And there's no disrespect I have towards Kelsey Ballerini or Taylor Swift, but the honest truth is on that is Kelsey Ballerini is country because she has country roots. But when you listen to her music, is it true country music? Not really. It's really not, because when you think about true country music, I look at people like Mo Pitney, I look at people like Rhonda Vincent. That's true country. And but nowadays, I guess now when we're looking at music as a whole, now it's like pop rock, or is it country pop?
Yeah,
Because now people are shifting from country to pop music, because now it's not, country anymore.
right.
Um, And I want to get that straight for people. It's like, it's no disrespect towards the artist and what they're doing. It's
Yeah,
just the pure truth behind it. It's the music isn't what it was before. It's changing. And so what is your view on that? I'm curious to know, how do you sort of perceive the whole genre thing?
yeah.
And I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, it also goes hand in hand, not just a genre, but if you look on Broadway on in Nashville, the Broadway strip used to be like Tootsie's, and that was more the stage and second fiddle. Now it's like, oh, Old Red, Jason Aldean, Florida Georgia Line, Miranda Lambert, all these different bars because it's trendy. It's up to date on today. There's a mall down there. Those things were not down there when I played on Broadway. It has really evolved into this generation. And it's the same with the music. The music has to evolve to this generation to reach this generation. And so it's kind of up to the artist like, hey, do you want to lean toward this or lean toward this? And so there's country music that I have out, but there's also a variety of worship, pop, rap. There's all kinds of things you can find on me because my roots are country, but I want to appeal to this generation. If I'm trying to reach it, I need to make it sound like that, right? And I love Loretta Lynn and Vince Gill and George Strait and all these ones that like we grew up on for country music. And even today, I will pick up the phone and call a label or radio station more than I would email, because I'm still the face to face person. I'm still like, they need to hear your voice. They need to hear the tone of your voice. They need to hear the personality. Like, we have lost touch of real and raw. And so I think it goes all hand in hand. It's just kind of what it is. It's not going to change, and it's probably going to get more electronic. I'm a producer myself, so electronic programming, computer programming, those sounds are popular. And it just is what it is. You have to add a loop to it, make it catchy. It can't just be some raw guitar anymore. So it's kind of sad, but it's where we're at in music. So
Yeah, and I want to also talk about something that happened, I guess, here in our city in Toronto or in Canada. Because today, I guess with 1,300 sort of, I guess, radio employees or radios, or I guess how much it was, I think it was six radio stations across Canada or across Toronto, we're all now like, I guess, what's the word to say it? I guess like shuttled, or
mm,
people were laid off their jobs now.
mm,
And a lot of hosts now are like jobless with because of people or media brands, I guess to say that media brands cutting jobs because they can't afford to pay everybody due to the I guess the rise of public platforms or digital platforms. Like we were talking about how things are now electronically
mm,
transforming, right? Like it's like
yeah,
if you were to talk to me about radio, and people listen to country music on the radio, that might be a whole different thing wherever, depending on where you live. But
yeah,
I guess as a whole, when you look at it, when you listen to music on radio, I don't think how many people like you can ask somebody how many people do you listen to radio on do you listen to music on radio? Um,
right,
and how much of that answer is going to be no, and how much
right,
of the answer is going to be well, did you listen to an Apple Music or Spotify? And that's probably going to be
right.
your growing numbers, right? Like, and it's same thing with radio in general. It's like how many people listen to the radio?
Yep.
Pretty much not that much.
Yeah.
And now it's like more on Apple Podcasts and more podcast streaming platforms. Um, so that's like really like interesting to me how this whole thing is now shifting, one by one. Um, I mean, there's so many things that you can talk about in terms of that, but you've got a lot of music out as well. Um, and you've got Holding On to You,
Mm,
featuring Gabby Callwood in 2021. You had New Life featuring Big Al in 2021. You're All I Need in 2021. Sounds like a line. Don't It in 21. Be Real featuring Charles D. King. Holding On to Your remix. Sound of Freedom. Old House. I want to talk about Old House because that's an interesting one. And
yeah.
you, I guess, researching more about that song and looking on articles about what you said about the song, you said, I guess there was a question raised about what if there was a lyric in that song that stood out to you, what would it be? And you said, bringing up my past is like robbing a house that is empty. Um, can you elaborate more on what that means and what it means to you?
Yeah. I'll tell you, like, I got really tired of people talking about the old me or the old self or the failures. They bring up, things I did in the past that were just wrong or, wasn't morally correct. And it's really annoying to be categorized or put in this box of like, oh, that's who they were, and that's who they'll always be, kind of thing. And that's honestly degrading, and it's like it makes you not want to get back up, and so in that time I was like, hey, it's honestly like robbing this house that, it just feels like I tried to paint this picture of a house that I lived in, from failures and choices and community that I surrounded myself with. And then saying, hey, like, I don't live there anymore. I can just walk out of that house anytime. It's a choice when we sit in things, when we sit in struggles, when we sit in that depression or anxiety or whatever emotional thing. It's a choice that we sit in. I believe that. And your mind has to get strong and the strength and say, hey, like, you can do this, get up and do it. So that's kind of where that comes from. It's just like robbing my past that's not there, it's not there anymore. So
Yeah, and you also had another lyric in that song. You said, I told myself so many lies and I started to believe them, that those window shades could hide the shame and hurt that I was feeling. Um, I mean, what lyric, I guess what's the meaning behind those lyrics? I'm
yeah.
curious to know.
So that's the second verse. Um, I told myself so many lies and I started to believe them. I told myself so many lies that I just started to believe them in my brain, that they were true. I would, if you get up and you say the sky's green every day, you're gonna believe the sky's green eventually. And I told myself that I wasn't worth it. I wasn't beautiful. I didn't deserve good. And the more you believe it, the more you train yourself to have more failures and train wrecks. And so, um, and then that those four walls could hide the shame and the hurt that I was feeling. Inside those walls of the house is how I hid my personality, my true self, my character. Like nobody knew I was struggling the way I was, or depressed the way I was, or just beaten down. I went to the house and I hid, I hid behind those walls, I hid behind those doors. And when I'd come out, I'd have a smile on my face, kind of thing. So everybody has an old house.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there's another song that you released, Hear the Thunder, but the song I want to talk about is Mama Prayed. That's a real personal one to you, and also you released that on Mother's Day. Um, Talk to me about the whole creation behind that, and I guess what the process was like behind that
Yeah.
song.
Well, I'll tell you, it was obviously my mama prayed for me, but I started it with just the chorus. And little long about a year after, I told myself, like, okay, next year, so this year, I'm gonna release a Mother's Day song, and I had it written, but it had to be rewritten for a lot of purposes, having other co-writers on it and just getting it stronger. We're strength, together, and so I kind of wanted to paint a picture of, like, there's so many moms out there that have to let their child go. There's so many dads out there that have to let their children go. Like, parents have to let their kids go eventually and let them fly. And so we painted this picture of me going to Nashville and just doing whatever I wanted. And I actually painted in the second verse that, like, I put in there that I was so drunk, that line about throwing up in the bathroom sink. Like, my mom told me, being at her home in Alabama, that she could feel how sick I was and how in trouble I was. And, like, that's a mother for you, like a love of a mother. So I thought it would relate so many different ways, not just calling it Mama Prayed, but Mama Cared, Mama Loved. Mama went to bat for me, So that's kind of where it was at.
Yeah, and I guess now going back to what we were talking about earlier, about your musical inspirations or people that stood out to you during CMA Fest, you said Ann Wilson, and Ann Wilson had a song with Hillary Scott of Lady A. I think it was called Mama's Due, not sure what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mamas.
it's yeah,
Yeah.
Mamas. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. And that song pretty much is, I guess, on the same wavelength now,
Yes.
as Mama Prayed, and now you're seeing a lot of these songs come out. And I guess one of the artists that stood out to me more often it was Ashley McBryde,
Hmm.
because she's done songs like that a lot. Obviously she's done songs like Girl Going Nowhere. Obviously that's been one of her more popular songs these days. And now she has a song called Light on in the Kitchen. And she's a whole Welcome to Lindyville album out as well. Um, I guess it's really cool to see people doing things like this now, and writing music that is personal to them and writing music that is
Yes.
true to them. And I guess now, like, finding out like the whole process behind the creation of those songs, I guess now I want to talk about the process behind writing songs, because I guess people have different ways of doing it because people can start with the melody first, people can start with lyrics first, then come up with the melody last. How does it work in your musical brain, I guess?
Honestly, melodies go through my head all day long. Lyrics do not come easy. That's why I like to co-write. But when they do come, it's definitely like it's got to be something that was inspired by something I read or whatever. And or a personal testimony, you know. And so I do produce, so I love to make beats and things. And I cannot create unless there's music. So I will always put the music first. I'll always do the notes and the different programming to it and then be inspired to be like, okay, what does this sound like? What do these words need to say? Like, sometimes they call it the climatic, like when you say like down, but you go up in a verse or something. Like it's just super cool how you can create differently for the listener to catch on.
Absolutely. And can you talk to me more about, I guess, your life growing up and what was that like for you? And I guess, how did you first get into music?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the church, and so I was singing at like 12 years old, 11, 12 years old. My mom would take me to all kinds of different festivals and competitions and just put me in there, and I'd sing Jesus Take the Wheel by Carrie Underwood everywhere. And I started to realize that maybe this is something I want to do. So I took piano for over 10 years. And I taught myself guitar. And then I started to make trips back and forth with my parents. About 15, 16 years old, I was going to Nashville. First studio I went to was Quad Studios, and that's where Taylor Swift started to record. And I'll never forget the producer, George McClure. He said, you got to have the whole package. And I was like, okay. So I could sing. I knew I could sing and I knew I could play, but I couldn't write. So I went home and I practiced writing, and it was terrible. It was absolutely awful. And when I met Don Goodman, when I moved to Nashville at 18, he's the one that trained me how to hear the melodies and hear the lyrics that go with it and the storyline and how it all connects. And it was just, I had it in me. I just didn't know how to pull it out. And he pulled it out of me, truly.
Absolutely. Well, I want to play a little game with you here, and it's called How Deep Will You Go?
Got it.
And it's three levels. Level one is icebreakers, level two is confessions, and level three is getting deep. And the first question for icebreakers is, I guess, what's a place you need to travel to before you die?
Uh, Hawaii.
Any reason why you pick
It's just,
Hawaii?
it's just beautiful. I want to go to Hawaii. I've been to Canada, so I want to go to
Oh,
Hawaii.
okay. So where have you been in Canada?
Fredericton. It's called Su. Is it Sioux or? Well, I did go on the Buffalo side over to the Niagara Falls, so I have been on the Ontario side and all that. But Fredericton, New Brunswick is what it's called. It's super confusing. That's a whole nother world, Canada. I love it though.
I mean, we appreciate that you love Canada. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a great country. It's a great country, and yeah, I just wrapped up a trip, a cruise trip to Alaska, just recently. We went to Seattle, we went to Sitka, to all places in Alaska, and wrapped up in Victoria, BC. Then made a separate trip to Calgary and up to Banff to Lake Louise to
that's amazing.
and yeah, so it's a great thing. And once like when you're like in your Airbnb, when you wake up in the morning, all you see is the mountains right in front of you.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
You know, that's the beautiful part. And I guess the second question on this game is confessions. Are you happy? And explain.
Yes. I always say happy and joyful. Happy is can be temporary, but joyful's forever. And so I'm both. I'm very happy when I'm doing. I'm very content with what I'm doing. I know I have purpose in this world, and I know what I'm called to do, and that's to love people every day. And I'm happy with myself, happy in my skin, in the music I'm making, and I'm a family person, so I have people around me that love me. So yes, I'm happy.
And yeah, that goes hand in hand with what you said about your view on success. You said who you are and what you do for others, and enjoy what you do every day and make success. And
Right.
to wrap up, I guess the last question would be, what's a thought you can never seem to escape?
I'll tell you, I always think about success every single day, and this is deep, but I am very scared to be successful because we should be scared of ourselves. Um, I wouldn't trust myself as far as I could throw myself. And so that's something that for me, I have a faith in the Lord. And so that's what I lean on. Um, and so I'm very scared to be successful. So never know.
I'm actually interested to know why you believe that. Is it just because you're afraid to know what comes next after that if you do become successful, or is it just everything as a whole when it comes to success in
Yeah.
general?
I've just had such a hard journey, and I haven't been presented success in a good way. It's always pertained to drugs or drinking or just the wrong crowds. And so I'd love to know what success looks like in a joyful way, in a good way, in a morally good way, the right way. So,
Absolutely. And I guess one last question that I would ask you is, what is the most memorable mountaintop moment, like the kind that makes you want to go home and call your parents about?
I have those every day. That's not a hard question. Like, something really cool happens every day. Like, it's just when you're supposed to get that contact or you're supposed to get that moment. I mean, it's super cool. I've got a series coming out on Netflix, like I think like next year or something. I got a call that I wrote a song for veterans, and they are using the theme song. Like, that's just super cool. Like, I get to go to Hollywood, and see it. And so I can't really say much about it, but that's, I'm kind of under agreement, but still, like, it's just super cool. Those are the kind of things that you look forward to every single day, and just whatever brings you to move forward. That's just it.
Absolutely. Well, I guess this question right here is probably gonna, I guess, has thrown people for a loop, has given people a hard time to answer.
Great.
But it's a tough question. I mean, if there was one person that is already in heaven that you would want to play a song with, who would it be and what song would you play?
It's not hard. My grandmother, she's in heaven, and uh I'd either want to write a song with her or I'd want to sing the hymn Because He Lives one more time with her. Truly.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, thank you so much for chatting with me. I had such a blast talking about all your music and exploring your song Mama Prayed, and all of your music in general, and having this important conversation about music in general. I mean, you can connect with Laurel on social media. I will tag her social handles in the description below. To help support my show, please feel free to share with family, friends, or on social media. You can find me on all podcast streaming platforms. I've been your host, Jigme Kelsang. Thanks for tuning into the show.